What is up, gamers? Welcome back to Brigade. My name is Brian. Thank you for joining me. Today, we are going to be doing the reverse countdown. We are going to be doing the snubs, the best games that didn't make my top 50. Most of these reasons, or most of these games actually, are really incredible games. They're very fun. They fit certain types of player groups. And I could see many of these games being top 10s or even top 5 for many of my viewers. I'm going to talk about the reasons why they didn't make my top 50 and kind of give some explanations to that. And I think it'll be kind of fun because some of these games you guys brought up when I asked about what are games that are on my list that you found that weren't there? Well, here they are. They're in the snubs. So let's dive into it and find out what those are. As a reminder, we still have our giveaway going. Well, we are waiting to give away Avalon the Riven Vale once we hit 10,000 subscribers. To be eligible for this giveaway, you must subscribe to my channel. You must leave a question or a comment answering the question of the day in the comment section down below. And you can enter on any of my videos that have the giveaway announced by entering the question of the day. So there's multiple ways for you to get entries into my giveaways. So look forward to that later in the video. So before that, obviously we're going to start talking about number 10, which is Planet Unknown. Planet Unknown is, well, let's start off with this. Planet Unknown is a game that when I originally played it for the first time was huge in terms of the board game community. People were obsessed with this game, and I was down at Dice Tower West. This is, I think, 2023, and with my player group, and they loved it, and so they encouraged me to play the game with them, and I didn't love it. And Planet Unknown is a polyomino game where you are trying to collect different pieces from this kind of lazy Susan in the middle that has pieces. But the way it works is when they rotate and take a piece, you have to take the opposite piece on the opposite side. It's a kind of an interesting mechanic. I'll give them that. I don't love polyomino games. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I just feel dumb. And I'm usually feeling pretty good at board games. I feel pretty confident in my play. But for whatever reason, when I play these games, it just doesn't seem like things sequence in the way that I want them to. Maybe my brain doesn't work in the way that that game wants it to work in terms of how I look at problem solving. But I've never found myself terribly enthralled with the game, but I do understand the cleanliness in the way the game is designed, especially with all the different types of planets that you can use with their different types of things that you have to deal with, the lava or water or whatever it may be. So I would give that still one of my least favorite games. That's one of the most popular games. That is Planet Unknown. Coming at number 9, and this one was 83 on my list of my top 100, is Foundations of Rome, another polyomino game. So it kind of makes a similar argument as to why I don't love Foundations of Rome versus Planet Unknown. But the reason Foundations of Rome is a little bit higher is the theme for me works really well. And I like the idea that you are building up Rome with the building. So it's a little bit more pleasant for me to play. It makes a little bit more sense in the way that the game is designed. So for some reason, that game works for me while Planet Unknown doesn't. So it could be just a weird theming issue. I'm not sure. But I do like Foundations of Rome. Now, I do think overall the game is too expensive. The deluxeified version for the actual gameplay that you're getting. The gameplay of Foundations of Rome is pretty tame in terms of what my most board game enthusiasm, like where I find myself at. So I enjoy the theme. I enjoy how it works. I think it's an interesting kind of fun game at times. Polyomino is not my favorite, but this one it works in. So that is number 9, Foundations of Rome, which was on 83 on my top 100. The next one was 75 in my top 100, and I no longer own this game. I just sold it. If you watched my vlogs where I did my game sale, I actually sold this game, and that is Mosaic, A Story of Civilization. Mosaic was an interesting game for me because when I originally got it, I was pretty impressed with it. I liked a lot of the mechanics. But it was with multiple plays, the veneer and what Mosaic was trying to do kind of wore off. And it seemed that games kind of ran the same way every time. And there was just like a direct best way to play. And it could be very easily runaway leader situations because in the game, you have different things you can do. You have a technology row. You've got some buildings up here. You've got some victory points that you can collect by having certain tags on your technology cards. Very much kind of similar to just think of like Terraforming Mars. I found that if there was a faction that was more heavily favored to ideas or getting those technology cards, they can just kind of chain them and run away and start getting these victory points. And because they are just first come, first serve, the game kind of can spiral out of control. I wanted to play a civilization game, and I don't think it's that. I felt like it was very lacking in the actual feeling of civilization. A lot of the cards, the technology cards too, didn't feel like they stacked up as if like it made sense. You could have riding and then discover the wheel. It's just kind of it didn't feel like a true natural progression of what a civilization game should be, because it's just art with some cards with some abilities and different tags on them. But there really no sequencing of escalation where you're building up an actual civilization from the ground up. It's just more of a, whatever. I just kind of explained that. So really failed for me in many ways, and I felt like this was not for me. And I ended up selling that, and I originally bought the expansion, the Wars and Disasters expansion, hoping that it would kind of make it a little bit more interactive. And it kind of did, but it also wasn't that good of an addition. It was like something that should have been in the base game as it is, because it's kind of necessary for the game to really function more than it does already. But it wasn't enough to actually make the game be the civilization game that it should have been. And I'm kind of disappointed because there were so many content creators that were hyped up on this game and claimed it to be one of the best civilization games. And I think maybe you could claim it to be a very good mechanical, just Euro game, getting set collections. But in terms of a civilization game, I think it fell on its face pretty hard. The next one is actually a game I have up here on the table, and that is Lord of the Rings Confrontation. This was 67 on my top 100, and surprisingly, this is a new one into my top 100. I played it for the first time in 2024, and I was way more impressed than I thought I would be. Now, I've owned this game for a while, but it took my friend having to bring his over for me to actually play it. So, Lord of the Rings Confrontation, the best way I could describe this game is Stratego, kind of smaller, but all your things have kind of interesting abilities, and you have cards that have certain side of abilities, and you are either playing the Fellowship or you're playing the Sauron, the evil shadow people. What's also interesting, like in Stratego, if I can remember, it's been like 30 years since I played Stratego, maybe 35. I felt like things were pretty lined out. You had a little bit of maybe way you can place your stuff. In this game, you're really deciding how you want to place your guys on the board before you move them up. And it's important because everyone has a certain interaction with how they are going to interact. How does Boromir interact with the cave troll or whatever? So you have to really kind of plan ahead and bait your opponent into some interesting plays. Now, I wanted to make sure I talked about this one when I was looking at my snubs, because there's going to be a reprint for this one, which is kind of interesting. This is a very old game from Fantasy Flight Games, and I think there's a reprint coming. So I look for it if you're looking for an interesting game that's been hard to find, that's a really good 1v1 dueling game. So 73, Lord of the Rings Confrontation. So that's this guy. Next one, though, is 67. Another one on this one. And that is Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor. Now, Uprising actually made my top 50 last year. It was in between 50 and 41. It was in that bottom portion of it. But anytime a game makes a top 50, that is an achievement of its own. Like there's thousands of games. Like my collection is like over 500. So being able to make it to the 50 is pretty good. Uprising is one of those games that if you have a chance to play it, will challenge not only you but your player group to successfully play this game. It's a cooperative 4X game, which is also very weird to have a cooperative 4X experience. But the game is very challenging. The AI system that is built into this game is very, very difficult for you to complete and requires you to kind of be aware of any possible situations that can arise so you can defeat it. One of the other cool mechanics that Uprising had, which was fun, is that it has two different AIs. You've got the Emperor in the center, and you kind of have the Scourge on the exterior coming in, and these guys are coming out. So you're kind of getting pressed from both ways. And the two AI, if they interact, actually will fight each other. They're not allies. They're independent forces. Everyone's fighting for territory. So really cool mechanic. Totally a cooperative experience. The reason we haven't played it is because of the complexity and having to reteach it since we've played it in a while. It's the recency bias is probably the biggest reason as to why this has fallen off my list. But I wanted to make sure I mentioned because I think this is an incredible game. If you're able to find it on the secondary market, I would definitely recommend checking it out, especially if you're a cooperative player. The next was one I don't own, and I'm pretty sure someone left a comment mentioning this brand. And this is number 60 on my top 50, and that's Clank. Clank is a deck building game that I actually really enjoy, and I'm surprised it didn't make my top 50, but it probably didn't because I don't own it, which means I don't play it as much as I would like to. There is a gamer in our group that owns it, and in fact, I liked the one, the dungeon crawling one, where, like the dungeon where you kind of set your own tiles. I thought that one was really kind of interesting. But Clank in itself has all of the charm and the mechanisms of a game that I enjoy. And the fact that it's a deck builder raises it up even higher for me because I enjoy the concept of taking a standard deck and upgrading it. And Clank effectively is a deck builder, but you're also you're playing this like interesting game where you're diving down into a dungeon, trying to get different loot and then get out before the dungeon collapses on you. I think it's super fun. It's a really great game. I don't own it, so that does hurt my playing of it. It doesn't get to the table as much as I'd like, but I think it's an interesting game. I think it's definitely worth a look at. Most of you guys, if you haven't checked it out, I would definitely recommend checking it out. And it hit my top 60, so that's Clank. Number 58, 4 on this list is Amun-Re. Technically, the 20th anniversary edition is what I got listed down, but Amun-Re, I think, is almost all the similar games. Amun-Re is a bidding game, a Euro bidding game, where you are attempting to bid on certain territories to score victory points and to get pyramids and achieve in-scoring goals. You know, Euro stuff. Like, how do you describe a Euro game? You're trying to score points and go up tracks. Like, that's what those games do. But Amun-Re is fun because it's got 2 phases. So you're going to do a whole bidding. You're going to be upgrading these territories, making them better. And then you're going to take all that stuff and you're going to go into a second phase and rebid. And all the things that you did are still present and make those territories more valuable for someone else to bid on them. So it's a really interesting game on that aspect. But then there's also a secondary phase where people can bid or steal money to kind of influence how much money everyone's going to get in the next round by bidding like favor or something. And it's a pretty interesting way that is done as well. So there's a lot of thought going on in terms of, for the players, in terms of how do you want to approach it, how much do you want to bid, how much do you want to save to upgrade your territories. I think that's a really fun mechanic and interesting. Now we played, there's an expansion that had a God expansion, didn't like it at all. I think it actually detracted from the experience. But the base game that I played, at least, the 20th anniversary edition base game, was very, very good. I highly recommend it if anyone hasn't gotten it. I don't own it personally, though, unfortunately. And that's number 58, Amun-Re. Number 56 is one that I own. And another one that I believe was mentioned in my comment section about a game that they were surprised I didn't have on it. 56. So this was very close to making the top 50. And I think if I get the expansion for this one and we play it more, I can easily see this one moving up higher in my playlist. Because this one, Inish, is, again, a lot of the things I like. But this one is a drafting game. Area control drafting from Matago. Still part of the same universe like that... not universe, but like the trilogy that is Kemet and I believe Cyclades or I don't know how to pronounce that one. But Inish is, I believe, a Scottish themed game. Could be Irish. I'm not sure, but I believe it's Scottish. Don't harass me if I'm wrong. Just comment and let me know what I am right or wrong with. But Inish is a game where you are going to be. I'm pretty sure it's Scottish. You're going to be having these territories, and they're really interestingly shaped. Let me see if I can actually show you this. These shapes are so interesting, and the fact that they can kind of interlock with each other is so cool. So you have these things here, and these will kind of connect like this on the board, just like that. And it's so cool. And these are the actual areas that you're going to have. And these also have powers and abilities that you can get by controlling them. But what makes Inish stand out against all the other games is the drafting mechanic. So there are going to be a set number of cards that players are going to be drafting, but those cards are limited, and they're always the same cards you're going to be drafting every turn. Now, one card will be burned and removed from the pile, so you're not going to know exactly the cards you're going to be drafting from, but for the most part, you're going to have a very good idea of what's in the pool and kind of get an idea of what people are taking what cards or what do they value as terms of the strength of certain cards. I think that is a very interesting mechanic that hasn't been played with enough in terms of board game design space, but Inish does it really well. And the fact that it takes an area control aspect on top of that and lets you, play a kind of a competitive game with your friends really makes this game kind of stellar. Now, I've heard there's a really good expansion for it. I don't know much about it, don't own it. I'd like to pick it up. I got this used secondhand, but Inish so far has been great. I could see it still climbing. It entered my top 100 this year or last year, and then this year it was in the almost in the top 50s. I can easily see it keep climbing as it goes up. Number 2 on the list is another one we got right here, and that is Nemesis, coming in at number 54 on my top 100. So just outside the top 50. Another one that was brought attention to. They were surprised I didn't have it here, especially because I've had it kind of. Oh, someone also mentioned Rising Sun, but it's been over here for a long time. Nemesis went from top 10 for me to top 25 to top 40 to out of the top 50 over the last 4 years, and it's because of the experiences. And I've mentioned this on the channel before, but the experiences that Nemesis provide are so vastly different that it's so hard for me to actually want to break it out. So Nemesis is one of the only games I own, one of the very few, where I can have an incredible experience and have laughs and joys and memories taken from that game, or an incredibly unfun experience where it's just a drag that goes for 5 hours. It takes way too long to experience the game. And the fact that it kind of can be dependent upon your player group is also kind of unfortunate. Nemesis is a semi-cooperative game where you are playing as a survivor on a derelict spaceship where there are aliens kind of roaming amok. And you are going to try to survive by either ejecting or taking the spaceship and putting yourself into some sort of stasis sleep. There's multiple ways. Now, what makes this semi-cooperative, though, is that you can get a goal that's kind of like a cooperative goal or a antagonistic goal where you can actually try to kill one of your allies by messing with them or luring the aliens to them. And they might not know that. And that kind of pulled away from me the fun because I've had too many situations where games just felt brutal. Nemesis on its own is already a very, very difficult game. And when you add on top of it players who are actively trying to make it harder for you, can make it unfun. And the fact that there's elimination, we had a game that went for 5 hours, and the 2 hour mark, our friend Mark was killed, and he just kind of sat there for 3 hours just kind of watching the game. Those are kind of archaic ideas and not really done. Now, Nemesis does have a third game coming out with Retaliation, which is more focused on the cooperative aspect and gives the players a little bit more interaction against the aliens, making it less brutal. I remember on this one, I played as the convict, and the guy, the bounty hunter or whatever, wouldn't unlock my frickin' handcuffs. And then eventually when I got released, I only had a lead pipe, and so when the queen jumped up on me, I'm just like, well, I'm dead. Like, it can create unfun mechanics. And I remember that story, obviously. But for a game that can have such a variety of experiences, it means that it's not a game that I want to play as much anymore. So while I do appreciate Nemesis, and I think it was kind of a cornerstone to my collection and the reason I kind of started this video hobby of mine, it's a game I don't really ever want to play again. So that is Nemesis from Awakened Realms. The final game, coming in at number 53 on my top 100, and 100% without a doubt, I know this game will be in my top 50 next year. And that is Wonderland's War. Another game someone was surprised I didn't bring up, and I was surprised too. There's games now, like in retrospect, when I look back at my top 50, I'm like, I think I could easily see Wonderland's War in this slot or higher than this game 100%. So I think next year you'll find this game in my top 50. Where? I don't know. Depends on how much we play it and all that stuff, and recency bias, as I mentioned. But Wonderland's War is a bag building game where the players are going to be playing as Wonderlandians from Alice in Wonderland, and you are going to be going around getting different types of cards that have abilities to put into your bag, different types of chips. And then eventually it's going to go into an aerial control battle where you're going to be placing your units into different territories that are going to have a battle, and you're going to pull tokens from your bag to increase your strength into each of those conflicts, hoping to not bust, kind of like there's a potion game, very similar. You're trying to not bust, so you're trying to build your bag, make it as good as you can, but also try not to bust, so you got some push your luck mechanics. It's a very fun game. I like the asymmetrical powers that all of the factions have, and I think the last game I played, where I played as the Mad Hatter, was so vastly different from what everyone else is doing that I just kind of really fell in love with it again. But I'm afraid that I'm going to want to play the Mad Hatter again, and my player group's going to be like, no, you played him last time. So you know how that is, right? But I loved Wonderland's War. I'm surprised it's not here. I'm surprised I don't own the game. The fact that it's in our party with our group has 2 different copies is the reason why I decided not to pick it up. But I definitely appreciate the game and love the game, and I definitely can see this in my top 50. So we're going to end that video, but we're going to go to the question of the day. So remember, you're going to leave a comment down below with a hashtag QOTD, question of the day. And I want to know, what are games that I need to be aware of? You've seen the top 50. You've seen the games that I think are big snubs. What are some games that you think I should be taking a look at for next year, for this year? What are some games that I think you think I might like? So leave a comment down below giving me your best answer to that question, and I would love to hear it. Remember, you can get an entry on any of my videos that mention this giveaway. Just make sure you answer the question of the day, and that'll get you your entry, and you must be subscribed. If you really want to support the channel, you can subscribe. You can also join the Patreon if you want to get some bonus content on there. I'd love to have you part of it. And you can check out the Discord down below to join the community and have conversations with me and my friends. So thank you guys for watching. My name is Brian from Game Brigade, and I will talk to you very soon.